Hi everyone, this is Catching Up with the Nerds with your hosts Tom and JC. This is a podcast about two dads that are catching up on all the nerdy stuff we missed, sharing how we pass on our nerdy passions to our kids, and deep diving into nerd pop culture to make it more accessible for you. Welcome back everyone.
Right, let's finally get into Justice League. let me walk you through the plot of Justice League, just so you know, because again, there's a lot of things that are happening in the Justice League.
Yeah, I don't remember a lot of it. Yeah.
So it's basically what Batman and Wonder Woman, they're trying to get together the Justice League. So they're trying to get the Flash, Aquaman, Cyborg, after Superman's death in Batman vs Superman. Oops, spoiler. To try to save the world from Steppenwolf and his army of parademons.
Yep.
So this is when I went in the movie. I was like, and this is what we talked earlier about, setting up your characters correctly, so you create a link with the audience, and eventually for them to care a whole lot more, and for them to spend their money in cinema tickets and bring you a lot of cash. So the first time I watched Justice League is not a comic runs that I actually read at all. Like I'm not absolutely well versed into that. I'm more of a Batman guy, but not Justice League. I was never really attracted to that. So I get into the movie theater, and I'm like, okay, cool, what's going on? That's great. We get to see all those guys teaming up. That's great. And then you've got the bad guy that shows up, which was my main issue with the film. It's like, okay, you've got those guys. I don't really need to know about who the Flash is right now, or who Aquaman is. Like, we'll get a movie after that, so that's fine. I don't need their origin stories before. That's absolutely fine. But when you're teaming up everyone, and they're all super famous, one more time, repeat that, they need to battle something that is threatening, is something that they're supposed to save, they're supposed to fight for something that you care about, right? There's supposed to be that goal that they're fighting towards. You know, they're trying to achieve something, and you want them to achieve that goal, and you need to have that threat. But then in walks Steppenwolf, and I'm like, who the hell is that dude? Like, and what does he want? Like, I don't like. Okay, so there's a story about him getting the mother cubes or the mother boxes or something like that. The mother boxes, that's what it's called.
Yep.
And you're like, in your there's like, okay, what are those boxes? What do they do? Like, it's briefly mentioned what they are, what they do, and what happened in the past with Steppenwolf and the Amazon. Is the Amazonia? Yeah, the Wonder Woman tribe.
Yep.
You know, okay, cool. They defended the Earth. They saved it thousands of years ago, and now he's coming back. I'm like, okay, why not? But who's that guy? Like, I don't even know what he does. I don't even know his powers. Has he got powers? Who is he? Like, is he the final boss? Has he got somebody else? You know, similar to Loki in the Avengers. Like, he's somebody who's got powers. They have to really fight against him to defeat him. But then eventually that guy is working for Thanos, and then you get introduced to the notion of Thanos and who he is and what he represents, and then eventually you face him and you defeat him. But then that guy just jumps into the Justice League movie, and you're like, well, I don't really care for you because I don't know you. If they kill you, I don't care. You save planet Earth, you save humanity, but so what? Like, that's what you expect. But who are you? Like, what do you stand for? Are you there just to conquer another universe? Like, with Thanos, there's a bit more things to analyze. Like, he's there to destroy and kill people, but there's a reason why. And there's a lot of people actually like, overpopulation is his reason. Like, he wants to, by killing people, he wants to save people. Well, like by killing populations, he wants to actually eventually save them and get them a better future. So you can argue, there's a lot of people that agree with that notion of, well, if you get rid of some people, you offer a better future, and the way he goes on about it is like, well, actually he's doing it like random, so you can't even be mad at him really, if you want to go that way. But Steppenwolf, I'm like, I don't really mind,
and he's kind of faceless.
Like, the CGI was bad, so you're like,
you can't really connect it, because that's the thing about that. That's the job that Marvel, I think, out of everything they did, the greatest trick that Marvel pulled off was getting us to connect with Thanos. That was the best trick they pulled off, because we had barely seen him. Thanos isn't really all that active. Like, we don't get a lot of action scenes where we're like, oh, look how cool he does this, or how cool is that. it's just him acting and just Josh Brolin just like coming through the character. Like the humanity of the character comes through, not in that we should empathize with him, but we almost understand him, to your point of just like, oh wait, he wants to just like make the galaxy less populated to like help out the people that are left over.
To save the galaxy.
Yeah, to like
that's his opinion.
His own version, and it's messed up, and genocide is not something that would ever go over like as a positive thing in any galaxy, but you understand his thought process, and you understand that it's rooted in a belief, right? And that's the part that we never got from Steppenwolf. It's like there's no thought process, there's no belief there, there's nothing that we should care about for Steppenwolf. He's equivalent of Doomsday. But at least Doomsday, they save Doomsday as like this mindless monster for the third act.
Yeah.
Right. It's like the big bad. Doomsday had no other purpose but setting up Justice League by killing Superman. That was his entire purpose. And then bringing a Wonder Woman into the mix as well, like drawing her into to collaborate with them. Whereas Steppenwolf, I'm like, I'm not sure what the purpose of Steppenwolf.
I know he's supposed to work for Darkseid. Which is fine, but he's not even really that mentioned in the movie. I'm like, okay. But just a side note, actually, that's something I was talking about with Ellie. In the movie, because I was explaining the movie to her, Justice League is like, so he's trying to gather those 3 boxes to get them together to destroy humanity or whatever he's trying to achieve. The dude could have done that at any point of time, any given time. He could have just dropped back on planet Earth because he said himself, like, I'm just waited. And it's like, he didn't have to wait for anything. He got defeated. He could have come back like literally the week after he got defeated to get the boxes back. So there's 3 boxes. One of them is with the Wonder Woman tribe. Yep. So on this island that is invisible, that even Wonder Woman can't go back to because she doesn't know where it is. Yep. It's with Aquaman and his tribe also. So underwater in Atlantis, nobody knows where it is. And it's somebody in someone else's flat on Earth.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
And the funny thing is, Steppenwolf just drops into on the Wonder Woman island, just like teleports, grabs the shit, and he goes. And it's like, oh, bye. And then he goes on to Atlantis, same stuff. He goes in, dives in, grabs the box, kicks a couple of fish's asses, and he goes back up and like, bye, I've got a box. And then he struggles as hell to find the last box, which is in someone's flat, unguarded. I'm like, what does that mean? How does that work? What were you smoking?
This is where we begin to shit on the Justice League. Yes, because there's parts that are just not good.
But hey, this is literally the part of So the reason why we shit on it is because that movie you saw in the theaters, the movie you saw in the cinema, that's Josh Whedon's cut.
Correct.
That's every shot, right? That's everything that was done by him. Let's introduce Josh for people who don't know who he is, and how he came to be. So I jumped the gun a little bit, but I think it's the right moment. So when doing the pre-production and post-production, so Zack Snyder was very much involved. He wrote the movie, he directed it. He, I think, was about 80% done with it, 80%, 90% done with it. He filmed a whole bunch of stuff. He wasn't really finished 100%. Like there was a definitive cut.
No special effects have been added when he had to leave.
No special effects, but none of it was done.
Minimum, yeah.
And then I believe he showed the movie to execs, and they were like, what is this? It's still too dark. Like, what are you doing? It's still very, very dark. Yeah. And so there's conflicting reports where people are saying, well, he actually got kicked out of the project, and they went, oh, let's bring Josh Whedon. But his version is much sadder, which is, well, actually, Zack Snyder's daughter committed suicide. So she passed away before the end of the shoot, or before he was done basically with the final cut. And obviously that had a terrible effect on Zack and his wife. Snyder's wife is also on the project, so I think she's a producer or an executive.
She is a producer. Yeah,
she's a producer, right? So both of them obviously could not finish the movie. You know, as you would, they just completely distraught. They moved on to something else and they handed over to somebody else. So DC decided to go with Josh Whedon, and Josh Whedon is somebody who's extremely famous in the world nerd universe because he's the guy who directed Buffy, created Buffy. No, it's not created.
Is he created?
You look
Good
that up.
question.
I'll go through the list of all the projects it's attached to. The famous one, Buffy, Buffy's follow-up Angel, Firefly, and then big movies, Marvel movies like the first Avengers movie and Avengers: Age of Ultron. Also wrote a bunch of Marvel comics, so he's quite a creative type.
He did write Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original movie.
Oh, so he actually
is the writer.
all right. Oh, he's the writer of the original movie.
Yeah, writer of the original movie. Yeah.
So Josh Whedon is now, brought into the project, and he's tasked to rewrite, like redo it again, make it more Avengers, make it more Marvel-like. And he goes back in there and it's like reshoot 80-90% of the film.
Yeah.
But now things that were, plots that were part of the Snyder Batman with Superman and Man of Steel, the whole vibe of the thing, the two first movies that were supposed to carry through Justice League, now it's just completely gone. There's a lot of stuff that don't make any more sense. So the movie you see now is the what's it called, the Josh cut. That's got a weird
the Whedon cut.
Or the Whedon cut or whatever.
Yeah.
It's got a or the Justice League, I think that's what they call
it. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. And again, it comes out and it's completely killed by critics. Fans also, you watching, you're like, oh god, it feels completely weird. It feels off. Do you want to talk about Josh Whedon as a human being? Maybe not. Because there's a bunch of story, and even actors that were involved in it didn't really like it. Especially what's his name, Cyborg,
Ray Fisher,
yeah, who's now come out with a bunch of allegations against Whedon, saying he's treating actors very unfairly, and crew members.
Well, and some of the producers too got thrown into that mix, including Jeff Johns, which is huge, because Jeff Johns is not only very involved in the DCU, he's very actively involved in writing comics. Like Jeff Johns wrote the entire Doomsday Clock run, and he's run Batman a ton of times. So it's some pretty serious allegations, some pretty serious people. Thoughts on Whedon? All right, this is where it's so hard to take them. We talk about like divorcing the artist from the art, right? And that unfortunately that happens all the time. And we all have like, should we divorce the artist from the art? There's two sides to that argument, I think, and it's hard to figure out which one I land in, because I agree. I think that an artist has a responsibility to the world and by the art that they're creating and the way they're making it. And anybody that treats anybody like that on a set should not ever be allowed to make a movie. But before all that happened, did I like Joss Whedon? Yeah, that's the thing. Like, not him as a person, but I liked his art. Like, I mean, and funny enough, like just about my favorite Whedon thing is not one of his more like Marvel-y ones, but it's Cabin in the Woods. To me, of course, Cabin in the Woods was just a genius movie. That just like came at the right time and did that in all the right ways, right? And he found like what's his face, the guy that plays Thor is in that movie.
Oh really?
Yeah,
of course, his name is
yeah, but the guy that plays Thor is in that movie, and I was like, so the point being is like, and like, I was not a huge Buffy fan, but I liked the idea of what he did with Buffy, which is like he brought like a nerdy kind of universe to CW shows, right? And it made it just accessible to a bunch of people, right? You get Firefly, which is like cult favorite, like bunch of people like live and die by Firefly. So. And we can really credit him with like from the Marvel perspective, we get some of the more amazing moments in Marvel from Joss Whedon. Which one, like the fight in New York, that was all Joss Whedon, and that was done impeccably well. And we get Ultron that for love or hate it, Ultron does set up a bunch of really interesting things down the line. So it's not his strongest Marvel movie, but I think that it's better in retrospect now when I look at it. I'm like, it actually helps the universe out a ton.
Dude, the Ultron movie is probably the pivotal moment of the entire Marvel universe.
Exactly. Yes.
It may not be the best, most entertaining movie, but in terms of what it does to the plot,
I agree.
it's a very important film. I loved Ultron. There's a lot of scenes in there. There's a lot of fun to be had. There's a lot of themes that are being talked about. It's a great film to me. I never understood the hate, but hey, we'll have different tastes.
We don't get WandaVision without it, right?
And that's exactly what I was gonna say.
So yeah, no, there's a ton there. So that's the thing, is like his art. I'm like, yeah, like I really like what he's done. And he's been very influential in comics. Like he writes comics, like up until I think recently, he was still involved in comics very actively. I've heard that I think it's his run on Avengers, and I think he has a run on X-Men that are meant to be really good.
I believe he's got the X-Men, yes, yeah.
Yeah. And so point being is that I can't make an excuse for how he behaved. Unfortunately, it's like, as much as like Kazar is like, if he behaved that way, the only thing that I feel like I need more of is that with those allegations, for example, with a lot of the Me Too allegations with like Harvey Weinstein and so forth, it's like, there was concrete proof. It was like undeniable that that's there. And I don't feel that we need to get proof to believe that it happened, but there still haven't been any specifics as to what actually happened. Like, if you just said like, Ray Fisher said like he was treated very badly, but we still don't know what happened in that scenario. And I'm surprised more details haven't come out. So I'm just curious what that investigation has been, because it feels like to a certain degree it's been resolved some sense. And like, Whedon ain't getting asked back to the DC universe. That's been clear now. And at the same time, but also Ray Fisher said he's not going to participate in anything else DC. So his character's being written out of what comes next. So it feels like resolved, but we never knew what happened. So it's just a bit weird, I think.
I think it'll take a couple of years before we have more, I think. It always does in those type situations.
And just a slight pivot, but the more interesting thing is like, how do we feel about Joss Whedon? But also like, how do we feel about Zack Snyder's art, Zack Snyder the person, and Zack Snyder's fans? Because I think those are three very different things.
That's another episode. Yeah.
Thoughts?
I don't know. Yeah, because there was a lot of, especially on the fans. But I think not only his fans. I think it's more of a nerd culture, and it's also very prevalent in video games fandom, where people are very passionate about those characters and those worlds, those universes. So if it's not dealt properly, or if it's not done well enough, then you get this massive toxic culture around it. Which is, I was going to touch upon it and in how we got the Snyder Cut to be released and all the online thing, but I don't know. I always feel like these people, it's always like a tiny minority, but they're always so very vocal and again toxic in the way they deal with their opinions, that I don't really want to give them any space, any breathing room, because you know what, it's not the majority. I think the majority of people are okay with most of things. They are there to enjoy whatever is presented to them. Yeah, you all have our opinions, but there's no way to send death threats and do stupid stuff like that, or go online and abuse content creators. I think I agree with you. There's always moving parts within that universe. Not all of it is pleasant.
It's ironic that I feel like we deal a lot with the implications of stuff that happen in the DC in the Snyderverse. It's all about dealing with those implications, right? They lead to like worse and worse things as we deal with the implications of really what started off with Man of Steel in a lot of ways. And I feel like in some ways this is somewhat like reminiscent of that. Like the implications of the fandom have just reverberated and have gotten like nastier. Like initially it was a group of people going like, let's let this guy have his vision seen by us, right? It's like we wanted to support Zach, and everything was super positive about like supporting Zach through like what he was going through with his daughter, like all that stuff was just like I read an interview with Zach that Vanity Fair did about like just a background of everything that happened leading up to this, and you can tell he comes across as a pretty decent guy, because normally like it's easy to put a PR spin on anything and make anybody seem decent. It's the fact that people that are standing up for him, right? Like all the actors that have showed up, they go like, no, Zach's a good guy. Like everybody's worked on set with him goes like, no, we love being on Zach's sets, right? It's like all that stuff ends up meaning something, right? And it's like, all right, yeah, no, maybe this guy should get a shot, because it was kind of unfair how it's taken away from him, and it's just for commercial reasons at the end of the day. It's like the
Absolutely,
movie
just
had to get
money.
released.
Yep.
Warner Brothers had to make money, so they had to go the best next director. And picking Joss Whedon was not a bad idea, really. I mean,
It's actually a very smart move if you look at it from a marketing point of view. It's like, well, look, this guy's done extremely well with the other side. Let's bring him on and get him to see if he can work his magic into our product and see if we can sell too. You know, at the end of the day, they are there to make money. The executives, they're not there to, of course, if they can make a very good product, then and something that will last a long time. This is what Marvel is really good at. It's, you know, they've got the next 10 years on lock, and which is not what DC has done. But again, it was a smart move to get him on, you know, get Whedon on. But also, like you said, is there's always a human side to it, and people are really attached to Zack Snyder. People are really seem, like you said, they like this. He's like a good guy, and I think I was going to talk about it in how we got the Snyder Cut to be released. I mean, unless you want, shall we move to that right now? You know, that's
yeah. No, I agree.
Because obviously, when the movie got released, you know, just to pivot into it, again, like I said before, it got panned by people saying, well, it's rubbish. It makes no sense. You can tell there's like two directors on this. There's two different visions on it. And people were like online, like, okay, so Zack Snyder was on the project for so long, and he's done like 80% of the film. So that means there's a cut somewhere. That means he's got his own like director's cut somewhere available that we could actually watch. That was supposed to be the original idea, the original vision for it. So there must be somewhere, something, you know, that we can watch, that we could see if it's better, maybe. So somebody online just started a petition, and people signed up to it, and it got like almost 200,000 signatures. And they went, oh, yeah, we get this release, please, Warner. And they went, well, actually, no, because it doesn't exist. And even Zack Snyder went, well, no, actually, there's nothing. Or he didn't say anything. He was like, can't confirm it, you know, because there were also legal ramifications to the fact that he doesn't own the footage. So he can't go, well, yes, there's one. I have it in my garage. You know, it's like, you can't go and say that. It's got to go, well, I can't deny, I can't confirm it. You know, I can go either way. But then there's a bunch of stuff that happened where celebrities came out and say, hey, I want to see it. Actors that worked for him. What's his face? Aquaman. Looking for you.
Yeah. Jason Momoa was one of the more vocal ones initially. Yeah.
He's one of the first ones to come out and say, hey, let's go. And then a bunch more big actors, you know, Ben Affleck came out eventually.
Affleck
Dots came out.
Jumped in big time.
We want to see it. We want to see it. And
interesting is Ray Fisher initially came out, we want to see it, but also made it very clear that we want to see it because Joss Whedon cut out a bunch of scenes for Cyborg. And that's where I paid attention, where I was like, oh, wait, Cyborg, because I thought Cyborg was underwritten in that movie. Amongst the multiple sins of that movie, I thought that was one of the cardinal sins. So then that's when I was like, oh, wait, that could be interesting to see what Cyborg's story would have actually been like, right?
Yeah, and then also the almost total disappearance of the Joker. Jared Leto's Joker was just like, where was he in the film? And again, like they all came out, they say, hey, we want to see a different cut, we want to see a different take on it. And yeah, so that was really the main difference. Like, it's not just only fan pushing for it, it was people that were actually involved in different degrees, shape or forms with the movie, and they went, yep, we all want to see it. And so that, you know, a lot of people had their doubts they would actually even exist. You know, they were like, nah, it's unreal. It doesn't exist. It's a fairy tale. You can't get it. And then you got to a point where fans actually wrote to executive when there was I think a merger between AT&T and Warner, and they went, hey, look, you guys are now in charge. You know, new people, let's go and push for them. And then I think the main turning point for that to be released and people confirming that it does exist is when the old CEO of Warner Bros. Resigned. What's his name again? Chu Giara and something like that. It's like the first Asian CEO guy. who was, he was the one that was pushing to get Marvel type movies. So when the new CEO came in, and Sarnoff, I think Ann Sarnoff, that's when she got pressured into, hey, look, these are all the letters we got, all the signatures we collected, all the people that really want to see this happening. And she went, all right, cool. Let's see if he's got anything. And apparently Snyder at the start of it was like, nah, we can't do it. No, I don't want to do it. And then they went, okay, give us what you've got. We just released that. And he went, yeah, no, it's either you give me a bunch of, like, a little bit of cash, like 60, 70, 80 million dollars. And
a little bit.
Do it properly, a little bit of cash. I'll finish it properly, or we don't get anything. So they, after a bunch of back and forth, they went, okay, here's your cash, finish it. What do you need? So he obviously had to finish all the special effects, CGIs, and then the cool stuff there. He actually got Amber Heard, Jared Leto, and a bunch of other people to come back to and film a bunch of different scenes. So it's quite interesting that it's happening in that way. So they eventually, thanks to the fans being there and, online pressure, something positive came out of it, that we actually got this to come out.
Yeah. And that's the part that I'm like, that if that alone is a story, I'm like all on board. It's when the how, right? We go back to Thanos. There's like the what and the how. And like the fans just got so toxic about it. Like, yes. So toxic. And got real. And it's a term that gets thrown around a lot in nerd culture, unfortunately, for anybody who's new to it. It's like gatekeepers. They are the gatekeepers. They're keepers of what is allowed as nerd culture and what isn't. What is allowed to be a fan of and what isn't. And that's the thing that is concerning, which is like, no, there's only one point of view, and it's our point of view, and that's it. It's like, no. Everybody can be fans in the way they want to be fans. It's not about.
It's very extreme. It's very extreme in the way it handles different point of views. But it's the honor. There's the one thing that is really gets to me, and it's something that I never get, and I never got before, is that the ownership of the character, for example, or the story. It's like, I had that debate at work with people, and it's like, oh, what do you think of the Jared Leto's Joker? And I'm like, well, actually, it's any take is great, unless it's a terrible performance. But that's more to do with the quality of actor. I'm all okay with the different takes, right? I like the Joker in Suicide Squad, right? This is when you get introduced.
Yep.
And I like it because he's threatening. He's more like a mafia boss, a mob boss there in that one. He's like, I wouldn't mess with him in that one, because I know he'll just the wrong look. He'll look at you and you end up with a bullet in your head. Whereas the Tim Burton ones, with is a bit more like, oh, he's great, but he's not. I don't find him that threatening. That one was very threatening. It was the same with the Nolan's Joker as well. Like he was like, this guy is clearly a psychopath.
Heath Ledger.
Yeah, Heath Ledger is like, he's clearly messed up, but it's a different type of messed up. Whereas the Leto's version is just like, whoa, absolutely batshit crazy. And I'm okay with it. I'm okay as well with the different takes on Batman. Like the old worn out Ben Affleck version is completely different from Christian Bale's version.
Correct.
So I'm okay with it. I'm like, as long as it's not completely done horribly, like the acting is good, I'm okay with whatever. But yeah, like you said, the guardianship and the ownership of all those stuff, it's a bit much.
Because I think this is going to be very interesting in terms of how, because this is, to me, like an earlier version of what happened with GameStop, which is you're flipping the script on who controls the power. Right. It's like, in this case, like fans almost like willed this. Like they did crazy stuff. I don't know if you found out that they actually rented a plane with a banner to fly over Comic-Con saying release the Snyder Cut. They bought media in Times Square to say release the Snyder Cut. All that stuff's expensive, dude. Like they pooled money together to have a movement, like a revolt against like capitalism. Of going like, no, you tell us what we watch. No, we're going to tell you what we want to watch, and you're going to do it for us. And there's something poetic and interesting about that. Sure. But at the same time, it goes like, well, how far can the cancel culture go? right? It's like what's happening on Twitter, and just like the toxicity happening in Twitter can also be a force for bad, right? So I'm very conflicted with the whole thing, because like now that I have a better view of what Zach is like and what he was like on his sets and how he treated people, I'm like, no, the guy deserves a shot. But I'm like, we're validating toxic behavior from the fans as well.
Yeah.
And it's so conflicting, man. I have a hard time with it.
It's a lot of, okay, so I don't really agree with most of a lot of the bullying that took place to make it happen.
Yeah.
But I like the end result.
Correct.
The end result is pretty much what people wanted to see from the start, from the get-go, right? It's just a pity that a lot of people are ending up using that sort of tactics to get into the end result, and it's a bit annoying to have to witness people acting that way. But again, you can argue that, well, if they're not acting that way, nothing will happen.
Correct.
But again, saying that, it's just a freaking comic. It's just a movie.
That's the thing. It's just a movie. Like we could have moved on and not gotten the Snyder cut and still been perfectly happy with like the movies that are coming up, because there's some really interesting movies planned for DC that'll be really great. And well, yeah, like getting what's his face, James Gunn to do the Suicide Squad is like something to look forward to, like the Flash paradox, like all these things. We could have just called it a day with the Justice League and moved on with our lives, right? Is the truth of the matter. And the thing about it is that now they're releasing it. The interesting thing is that, one, it's to your point, it's a 4-hour cut, but also the studio execs at the last like DC day or whatever said that they and I quote, it's a cul-de-sac. It's not going anywhere. It's like, that's where that story ends.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but is it though? It's like,
psych.
Yeah, I'm like, that's the only thing so far that I'm like, you guys are putting 70 or more million into this, which is more than the cost of most movies, just to recut it and then releasing as a 4-hour thing, putting it on a streaming platform you're trying to build out, and you're going to call it a
so
day?
much effort. Yeah.
And so, the reason why I question, go on. Yeah.
No. I was just going to say, because you before we move on to the last part of the podcast, because like, and I think that's going to be part of the expectations and where we're looking forward to it. But what you're talking about now, just the one thing, because you say obviously it's a 4 hours long film. The entire film is entirely made out of new shots. There's nothing that Josh Whedon's made or used or created or filmed during his time on set that will be used for the Snyder cut, which is, I think, quite remarkable. That he went bye.
Well, and the thing to clarify on that though is that you won't get any of Joss Whedon's footage, but you still will get some of Zach's footage that was in Joss's film.
Yes.
So it's not a completely new cut, but yeah, I agree. It's like 4 hours compared to what it was. Like, that's significantly more footage. And I think the big question we're asking ourselves, the most important thing is like, will Superman have a mustache?
That'll be badass. I hope so. Ooh, I hope so.
Did you hear about like how they had to like airbrush the mustache off of him?
Yeah.
Right?
No, not the tash. The entire lower jaw, like the entire jaw, the lower face,
entire
like
jaw,
from the nose down. That's what they had to.
It didn't look right. So I'm super curious if they went and just reshot that with Henry Cavill,
because they had Cavill coming in, right? So
yeah, they did. So I really hope they reshot that stuff, man.
Oh, I hope so. I want to see some facial hair there. You know, bring some gritty shit to the star.
So,
hang on, before we move on, like what you said about DC saying is the end of the road for that movie. It's very interesting in terms of what's happening, because if that's true, again, that's a stupid move. That's such a dumb move, because you put a lot of energy. There's a lot of
totally.
A lot of what was the word for it? Expectations around this. A lot of momentum around it. Something they've not had for a while. There's a lot of publicity around it. It's actually being talked about by other people that are not nerds, that are not part of the film of the entire movement. Yeah. You know, and it's helping a platform like you say, HBO Max, to get more eyeballs. And you create that, you've got that universe, everything is set up, you could build upon that, and you would just stop it. You put a bunch of money into it, and this is it. How does that make sense how does like we said before, they're in it for the money. At the end of the day, the bottom line is making a bunch of dollars. It's like, so what? Now let's say it all come out great and it's amazing and people want more, and you say, nah, dude. Unless they do a Jay-Z and they release the Black Album, it's like, oh, I'm retired now. Bang. Psych, I'm back.
I feel like, I don't know. I don't feel like Zach's done with that universe, but I may be very wrong about that.
I hope not.
Or they're setting Matt Reeves to take it over. I don't know, but because anyways, but I think this is a good segue to
expectations.
What do we want? Yes.
What do we want?
Because I definitely have some views on that.
What do I want? What? Okay, let me start because mine will be probably shorter than yours, I think. But I think my expectation is for it not to suck. This is it. That's it. Like I want to walk out. I want to walk out. I want to walk out of it. I want to be like, yeah, I had a good time. It makes sense. Yeah. It looks good. There are a bunch of fighting scenes in there that were badass. I'm very happy with that. Maybe DC's got a point. Maybe we should let it go, and that was it. But I want more. I think these are my expectations. My expectations is to A, not having suck, and B, want to want more of it. After that, that's it. Simple. What's yours?
You're going to enjoy it more than I will, because I think I'm upping my expectations a little too much on a couple of things. But no, you know what the main thing is like. This is a little digression, but it'll make sense. So, Iron Man, right?
Yep.
Gets directed by Jon Favreau. Pretty much sets the vision for the MCU. I'd say that the two directors that set the vision for the MCU are Jon Favreau and Joss Whedon. What Favreau does with Iron Man gives you a very clear view of how grounded that universe is in like a real world, like his hostage scene, all that sort of stuff. Joss Whedon, it's like what happens in New York is like how you shoot that to make it more comic book like.
Yep.
It makes a big difference in the MCU going forward, right? And Jon Favreau stays on as exec producer for a lot of stuff, and so does Joss Whedon up until like they part ways and they don't like each other anymore, right? And it seems like that happens a lot with Joss Whedon. But point being is that if you look at DCU, who set the direction for it, the more I look at it, and I hadn't noticed this as profoundly as I did like right now when I noticed movies, it's like, this is all Christopher Nolan. This is the vision that Christopher Nolan set. And he's still exec producer on it, right? And how the lighting goes, how the costumes are done, like a lot of like the visual stuff is very much there. And even thematically, I think that even carries forward, because what Nolan leaned into is what Frank Miller did with Batman, which is like, how do you perceive Batman as a symbol, right? It's like when it's not about the person, but the symbol, what he stands for, and what does that imply? And Nolan never takes that to the extreme point that Miller does, and that like you almost get like that final scene from the Joker in Miller's run.
Yeah.
So where it's like basically like a legion of people are all dressed up like Batman, right? It's like everyone's Batman all of a sudden, right? And it's like that's where he takes it to. But point being is that, but still the aesthetically and thematically how he sets it up, it's still based on what Nolan does. And if you look at and Zack Snyder was actually a really good director for that, because if you look at what he did with 300 and the way that he tied in like how you perceive these like mythological people, right? And portray them in a way that feels like it feels very different and very like godlike in how they stand, and like the differences between people and how that plays out in war and stuff. That all like carries through to Man of Steel and Batman v Superman thematically. It's like, it's still like Zach is taking what Nolan did and bringing his own sauce to it, but it meshes well. Like it goes well. Like now, as I was seeing them this week, I kept thinking like, if I had seen Dark Knight and then jumped into this, would it have been weird? No, like it would have made total sense actually to jump between those. So there's obviously like character stuff and actors and little things like that. But overall, I was like, no, this feels like a world that feels still in the same place. The cities look real. Like when you look at the impact of stuff, this is what I think Marvel has never done well. When you look at those first scenes of Batman v Superman, it feels like 9/11. I remember turning over to Aiden going like, that's footage that looks like footage out of 9/11. And it grounds you in like this like devastation that I think Marvel never leans into as well. Like they never make it feel that impactful to the other people that live in this world. So one of my experiences is I hope that, because Zach, I think has done a very good job of taking that point of view. We get like news coverage of what's happening. We get like the political debate of what's happening. We get like people's reaction on the ground of like the loss of family, the guy that lost his legs, and like how he comes back and plays a role in Batman v Superman. I hope they don't lean away from that and just make it about the Justice League only. That we still get those like on the ground implications, because I think Zach did a very, very good job of that. And it helps the movie in so many ways to make it much better. So that's like one that's a real expectation for me from the movie. Just like the average person's point of view. No,
it's you're right. Yeah, I think you're getting to the same point that me. As long as he doesn't. It's true though. I just wanted to, apart from being jokes aside about saying, oh, I hope it doesn't suck. I think to elaborate a little bit more, I think what I really look forward to with my expectation is that I just want it to be coherent.
Yeah. I
think what's really good about the Marvel universe, like, we obviously will compare the two universes until the end of days, but is that it's coherent. Of course, there's some plot holes now and then. There's a bunch of stuff that like it's funny, but it's coherent. It's all like it's all interconnected. But then it always feels, because there's so many people that were involved in those projects, that it's all over the show. And that's what I want. I want something that for 4 hours we're gonna sit there and be like, okay, this happens because of this. This will impact that, and that all makes sense. And this is where I'm going with this. Is that I don't want it to be this disconnected piece of work that's like suddenly the opening part of the film is this, and then we jump into something that's completely nothing to do with it.
Yeah. And
then you start somewhere and you end up completely disconnected from every single part of the film, and I don't want that. I just, because it was supposed to be a 4-part film or 6-part series.
It was supposed to be three. It was supposed to be a trilogy.
3, 4. It changed a lot. Over time, but I'm just hoping that they didn't go in going, okay, well, this will be movie number 1 or part 1.
Yeah.
And then part 2 will be this, which is another sort. So I just hope that it makes sense instead of storytelling in terms of character developments and plot developments. I hope that there's something that is strong. But again, because he's rewritten the entire thing again, and he's reshot a whole lot of scenes, and it should make sense. It should be a lot less people involved in that one. I think it's probably got more control into what's happening there.
Yeah, and I'm super curious if Christopher Nolan's going to show up as executive producer on it.
I don't expect anyone showing up anywhere anymore.
Wait till we get Mephisto in Justice League.
What if Doctor Strange just shows up at the end and grabs Batman? Yeah.
The other big expectation, and this I think is the one that I'll probably be let down on, but I do hope that comes through, is that I picked up and just watching them back to back, Man of Steel and Batman, because I watched them over like 3 nights or something, I think, or something like that. There's 2 themes in those characters that I thought, oh, this is cool if they can take this forward, because it really makes me care about these characters. And it's one is that Batman's entire arc is based on trauma, right? And there's no surprise there, right? Batman's always has been based on, but they really lean into it. Right, of just like how it's demolished his life. He has nothing. You even get like when we were watching it, like Aiden turns to me, he's like, this is a really good Alfred, isn't it? And it took me a minute to go like, you know what? Even though I love Michael Caine in the Nolan movies, he's so good. He's like what you want from an Alfred. He's like, oh, he's like your dad. It's like
he's a father figure.
Yeah, he's like a good father. Like this one is like Jeremy Irons is so snarky and so like done with the whole thing, but also like so like hurt by it. And I like that he carries that with him, right? So it's like how Bruce's trauma has even impacted Alfred, where it's made him more sarcastic, right? It's like the Batcave, like all those moments in there, it's like he's by himself, he looks lonely. It's like, so I hope that carries forward into the Justice League movie as like a key part of that character, right? That it'll just all make it like, oh, he's like on the team and he wants to bring everyone together, because Batman has always been jaded about the Justice League. He's always the one that goes like, there's an entire DC animated movie about Batman finding ways to neutralize all the Justice League heroes, and them finding out that he has that plan, and that plan falling into the wrong hands. Right. He's always been a bit like skeptical about the Justice League. So I hope they carry that forward. And then the second thing is that, to me, Superman's arc is weirdly around inclusion. To your point, like earlier talked about the immigrant story. His whole thing is like, he doesn't know where he fits in. His old planet, it isn't there anymore. That's why he's so conflicted about killing Zod, because it's like that was the last Kryptonian he knew that he could actually connect with, even though he was trying to beat him into a pulp. It's like that's still the last Kryptonian.
It's a connection to his planet, to his past.
And he never feels included with anybody in Earth, but knows that he has a duty to preserve Earth, right? And we find out in the movie, and I really love that at the end, like they make a point of because I remember looking and going like, oh, they're giving him. I didn't remember they give him a military burial, and I'm like, well, that's a bit off, because they didn't accept it up until a minute ago, and they were all like conflicted about him, and now he gets a military burial. And then I like that they make the point where he's like, oh yeah, you see the burial in Kansas, and someone says a comment of like, yeah, out east it's a coffin with no one in it, because he's like, that's the only way. Oh, and I think it's Wonder Woman that goes, that's the only way they knew how to honor him. Right. So it's like even in death, he's not included in the way that he wants to be included. He can't be himself. And that's the things, one of the big things about inclusion is like, how can you show up as yourself in any given situation? A lot of times as an immigrant, you're not allowed. You're allowed to show up as what's expected of every citizen in that country. Right. So I hope they carried that theme of like him finding his niche of where he feels like he can be himself and just be that, but not ever finding it, because the world is not meant for God to fit in. Right. So I hope they carry that forward, because I thought that was super powerful, and it's not done yet. That arc doesn't feel done. And it felt like Zach had plans for that arc. So I hope that they bring that. That's my only like two big requests of the movie, which are very big, unfortunately.
They're only very tiny and not complicated to achieve, I'm sure.
Yeah, not hard. Amongst some, and I still want a lot of punching.
Yes, fights.
A lot of punching, fights.
I want to see Batman.
And if I can get an octopus playing the bongos,
you're gonna lose your shit.
I think I'm there, dude. That would make me feel very happy. And they need to play the Wonder Woman theme. I did not realize how good that lands in Batman v Superman when she shows up, and the first thing you hear is the theme, because you don't actually see her. She's just like putting her wrists together, her bracelets together to like fend off that blast from Doomsday. And you realize it's her. Dude, Zach did that like chef's kiss, man. Like so nice. Like amazing.
Yeah, no, I remember.
So I want more of that, please.
Yes. All right, cool. I think it's time to wrap it up, because we went on for too long again.
And let's get Ryan Reynolds.
Yeah. Let's get Ryan Reynolds. Ooh,
that's a reach.
Yeah, that's a very reach. All right, cool. Well, thanks again for showing up. And it's weird to be back as a duo, but it's nice too.
I know. Yeah, it's good, man. It's like we need this moment to reconnect a little bit, like find ourselves again.
Yes. Let's go away, JC. Let's go for a weekend away.
Yeah, and just talk about
watch
nerdy
a couple
stuff.
Movies.
Yeah, I know, man. Totally.
Pop up in a couple of bottle of wines, and eat some nachos and shit. Anyway, anyway, thanks everyone for listening one more time, and please like, subscribe, share. Again, a massive thank you to the 1,000, almost 100 followers on Instagram. This number is getting crazy. We're almost at 400 on Twitter, which is quite cool. And I'm not looking at Facebook as always, so don't subscribe to us there.
Who does?
But please do subscribe on Apple Podcast and Spotify, and give us 5 stars or 4 stars or whatever you feel this podcast deserves, and leave a comment in there, because that's review. So not a comment, a review on Apple Podcast. That's greatly appreciated, and that's very helpful to us. And also YouTube, if you can subscribe, like, and share there, we'd be very happy, because we got like 20 something subscribers there. We need to up that game there. But yeah, that's it. So from me, Tom, thank you. Yes,
And go watch the Snyder Cut coming out this weekend, please, because we will be coming back with another episode after we've watched it to get our thoughts and what we thought about the movie afterwards.
Absolutely. But that's it. So from me, Tom, thank you very much. We'll catch you in the next one, which will be again about Snyder Cut.
Nice. Thank you, Jason. And just thanks to Tom for as always being a faithful producer to this podcast, as well as a podcasting partner. And thanks everyone for following us. We appreciate it tons. Bye.
Bye.